What's going on, guys? Welcome back to The Shelf, and in this video, we're looking at some trash. That's right, in this video, we are talking about Valentine from 2001, a movie that is, in my opinion, one of the worst holiday slasher films of all time. When it comes to Valentine's Day slasher films, My Bloody Valentine pretty much owns the monopoly on that one. And, you know, there's a remake of that film which has its fans, I'm sure. Outside of that, though, the next most popular entry is none other than Valentine from 2001, directed by Jamie Blanks, who also directed a much better slasher film, Urban Legend. I wish we were talking about that today. It stars Denise Richards, Marley Shelton, Jessica Capshaw, Jessica Caulfield, David Boreanaz, and briefly, Katherine Heigl. So before I absolutely roast this movie, I will say that it does have a couple of things going for it. For one, it features an almost entirely female cast, which at this time would have been considered pretty novel. Despite our group of leading ladies in this film not necessarily being the most likable characters or even the most fleshed out, there is a sort of sub-theme of female empowerment that runs through this movie. And, you know, despite how poorly handled it is, I do have to give them a little bit of credit for at least trying. Although they really did not try very much, and we're about to get into that. The film also functions as an interesting time capsule into a time when the internet was in its infancy, and things like speed dating and video dating were a thing. Opinions vary as to whether this is a good thing, and that's pretty much it. That's all the nice things I have to say about this movie. So, with that out of the way, let's get into why I think this movie is absolute dog water. Spoilers ahead for Valentine, folks. Unfortunately for me, I'm about to discuss the entire movie. Let's get into it. So the movie begins with a flashback to a Valentine's Day dance, and here's where we're introduced to our group of leading ladies when they're kids. Our group of girls consists of Paige, Kate, Dorothy, Lily, and Shelly. So they're all socializing at the dance when this kid, Jeremy Melton, comes up, and he asks them all to dance, and he subsequently gets rejected by each of them in turn. Jeremy is not exactly a hit with the ladies, but, you know, the dude's putting himself out there, so, you know, can't hate on that. So our one girl, Kate, is the only one who's kind of nice to Jeremy. She doesn't outright say no, she just says maybe later. So it's not quite a rejection, but it's not quite a yes either. Gotta take those W's where you can get them, Jeremy. Dorothy, however, says yes, and eventually they wind up making out under the bleachers. Dorothy is a little bigger than the other girls. Big-boned is how they describe it. This is one of two of Dorothy's only character traits, the fact that she's bigger than the other girls. It's a lot to remember, so I'll only give you one of them for now. We'll save the other one for later. Anyway, a bunch of the other kids discover Jeremy and Dorothy making out, and Dorothy, very embarrassed by this, decides to accuse Jeremy of attacking her and forcing himself on her. So this causes Jeremy to become publicly ridiculed in front of the entire dance, and thus, a serial killer is born. Yeah, this is the catalyst for our slasher film, and boy is it underwhelming. It kind of plays out like a Great Value offshoot of Carrie, but with middle schoolers instead. After this, we cut to present day where we follow Shelly, who is on a date with this Sigma male dude named Jason, who refers to himself in the third person. Right away, this is where the movie begins to show just how tonally inconsistent it is.
Jason has some spinach in his teeth.
Oh.
Now, I'm not expecting this thing to be as serious as The Exorcist or anything, but I mean, this scene just feels like it's ripped out of a different movie. It's so goofy and ridiculous. The date goes poorly, and Shelly leaves to go find fulfillment in another stiff, this time in the form of a corpse that she's performing an autopsy on as part of her medical school requirements, I'm guessing. To me, this is an odd thing to do immediately following a date, but it must have been due the next day or something. Anyway, so she starts cutting into the guy when she hears a noise and decides to go investigate. So the movie does the classic thing where our girl goes to investigate, and she gets jump scared by the guy who's locking up, and he leaves her all alone to die. She then proceeds to find a very threatening Valentine, which will become our killer's calling card. So in an extremely baffling move, Shelly comes back to the autopsy room to discover that right as she's about to cut into the corpse, the serial killer has for some reason, he's taken the corpse off of the table in the time she was gone, stuffed him in a locker, and then put himself on the table instead just to scare her? I'm really not sure what the plan was here. Not only is that stupid, but in order to pull off this ruse, the killer would seemingly have to have taken off his clothes, or at least partially taken his clothes off, in order to pass for the corpse. So that means that he then has to run off, get dressed again, and then continue his stalking of Shelly. I mean, this movie, man, I already want to quit. I don't want to do this. So a game of cat and mouse ensues, with our killer looking impressively goofy with his uninspired black outfit and his Cupid mask. I guess pickings are slim when it comes to Valentine's Day iconography, so they kind of had to just roll with the Cupid thing. It's probably one of the reasons why there aren't many Valentine's Day slashers, but, you know, I digress for now. So, not to be outdone by the stupidity of the killer, Shelly decides she's gonna one-up him. So Shelly runs into this room that's filled with corpses in body bags, and Shelly decides that she's gonna stuff herself into one of those bags and just, you know, pretend to be a corpse.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
She's not going to have to pretend for much longer, let me tell you that. So naturally, the killer just proceeds to systematically stab each corpse until he discovers Shelly. Who'd have thought? Seriously, what did she think was going to happen here? Anyway, so he finds her and he slits her throat, setting the table for just how stupid this early 2000s slasher movie is about to be. Oh, also, whenever the killer kills someone, his nose starts bleeding. Don't ask why. I hope you're prepared to go to the grave wondering why, because this movie is not interested in telling us. So in another instance of tonal whiplash, we now cut to Kate and Paige, and they're having some fun at a speed dating session, you know, just hanging out. And this scene also feels like it's ripped out of another movie.
Are you fine? You're fine then.
Overall, the dialogue of this movie feels like an episode of Sex and the City with like a really half-baked Scream plotline thrown in for fun. So after the speed dating is over, the girls are leaving and they get the call that Shelly has been murdered, and they kind of react like they just found out that their car is being towed.
Oh my god.
They just, you know, it's like a minor inconvenience. Now granted, the rest of the girls haven't seen Shelly in over a year. I guess they've kind of grown apart a little bit, but they are still friends. But you know, you would at least expect them to at least try to act like they're grieving. Seriously, like, where was the director during this scene? All we needed was a, hey girls, during this funeral scene, you're sad. And action.
How are you doing, Lily? Are you okay? I don't know. I can't believe she's gone.
No, nothing. Okay, moving on. Oh hey, Angel's in this movie. Nice.
And you can count on me, because I'm the Dark Avenger.
So this character's name is Adam, but I'm just going to refer to him as Angel because I think it's funnier to do so, and I need to have some fun with this because if I don't, I'm going to lose my mind. Anyway, Angel and Kate used to date, but they're either broken up or taking a break right now. It doesn't really matter. So Angel has a problem with alcohol, and Kate kind of tells him that if he can't quit, then they have no future together. Essentially, Kate's entire defining characteristic in this movie is just centered around her relationship with Angel. Her as a character has no real agency or even a personality outside of that plot dynamic, so yeah. And it's unfortunate because a lot of the movie hinges on their relationship, and they don't really have any chemistry together. So David Boreanaz was pretty big around this time from Buffy and Angel, so I'd like to think that that played a pretty big part in his casting in this movie. So anyway, after that, we're then introduced to Detective Vaughn, who is a very inept, very horny cop, and he's working Shelly's murder case. During this funeral scene, we also get a little bit more background on the girls. Dorothy, she's the bigger girl from the beginning who made out with Jeremy. Her personality traits are boiled down to she used to be fat when she was a kid and now she's not, and she's kind of got a chip on her shoulder about it, and also her dad is rich. Yeah, that's it. Paige's personality boils down to the fact that she's hot and uninhibited.
Sorry. Jesus, Paige, it's a funeral.
What?
And her friends like to, you know, get on her case about it a little bit. Kate is in her situationship with Angel, like I said. And then you have Lily. And Lily's just kind of there. Yeah, there's not much going on with Lily. So after the funeral, Dorothy goes home and she's visited by this absolute Chad named Campbell. Apparently they've gone on 1 or 2 dates, and now Campbell has shown up and he's looking to crash at Dorothy's place because I guess his roommate didn't pay the rent or some shit. It's funny because in this scene, he's like trying to appeal to her sympathetic side, and he's explaining the situation. He's like, yeah, all my stuff, all my worldly possessions wound up on the street.
Skis, CDs, clothes, everything's just gone.
Skis, CDs, and clothes. That's all this guy had that was worth a damn. But I guess to a young man in the 2000s, this was really all you needed to get by in life, so. So Dorothy lets him crash and doesn't bother clearing it with her dad, which is hinted that it might be a problem, but it ultimately doesn't wind up being a problem, despite the movie suggesting that it might be. That's this movie. It's fucking stupid. So Dorothy's dad is in like his late 50s, and he has a new wife who is like way younger than Dorothy, and they have a scene together, the three of them, Dorothy, her dad, and his new wife, where they argue, and it's just so weird.
It's okay, sweetheart. You have to show more respect to my wife.
It feels to me like the writers wanted to make a scandalous comedy about women living in San Francisco, but they also were forced to make it a slasher movie too. Seriously, which one of you guys are responsible for this? I need to know. So after this, we then cut to Kate, and she's taking a shower. During her shower, she hears some suspicious noises and decides to cut the shower short and go investigate. In the process of the investigation, she discovers that for some reason she now has no water. This part kind of confused me. Like, did the killer shut her water off? Because he knew she was taking a shower? So Kate, having found nothing but was still with soapy hair, decides that she is going to rinse her hair off in the toilet bowl, which is so far the scariest thing to happen in the movie so far. So she then gets a call from no one. Classic slasher tropes aplenty here. So then she goes out into the hall of her apartment building, still only wearing a towel, and she finds one of the Cupid Killer's masks on the floor. Our guy is just leaving clues all over the place like it's an episode of Scooby-Doo or something. Then, out of nowhere, we're introduced to Kate's neighbor, Gary, who feels like he belongs in another movie.
You look great, Kate. How about a date, Kate? You could be my mate, Kate.
He starts rhyming at Kate like he's about to spit some bars or something.
I be rapping, I be capping, I be tapping, I be flapping, I be happen. Ning, ding, bing, wing, yo.
We then cut to Paige and Lily, who are hanging out watching some speed dating tapes in yet another scene that has aged this movie like milk. Someone then knocks at their door and leaves some spooky chocolates and another morbid Valentine. Lily bites into one of the chocolates and discovers that it's full of maggots. So the girls then realize that all the creepy Valentines that they've been being left have been all signed by someone named JM. So after they put their heads together, the girls realize that it could potentially be Jeremy Melton, the kid from the beginning of the movie. They proceed to then sit around and just roast the poor kid. Now, only Dorothy knows that Jeremy didn't actually do anything wrong, so she's definitely the shittiest character probably in this whole movie. That being said, I don't really think any of the girls, except maybe with the exception of Kate, are like that good of people, which is unfortunate because these are our main characters, and we're supposed to like them. Now, to be clear, I don't expect super dynamic, well-fleshed out characters in my slasher movies. If we get them, that's great. But if you don't get that, then it's usually, in good slasher movies, it's balanced out with, you know, other good things, like a creepy atmosphere, great kills, great practical effects, etc. Unfortunately for us, Valentine has none of these things. So now we're at some weird art installation that has been created by this guy Max, who's been hooking up with Lily. Jesus, I feel like I'm describing the plot of an episode of Sex and the City. Also, Campbell is here, and that weird dude Jason, who was on the date with Shelly in the beginning of the movie, he's here too. So Jason stands there with like this creepy smile on his face and then just walks away for no reason. I think this is the movie's attempt at like creating a red herring, but it's so blatantly obvious that it has like little to no effect whatsoever. The art installation is this movie's attempt at crafting a scene that is like interesting and visually distinct, and I suppose it kind of accomplishes that, but the scene is also still very weird and ugly looking, and just kind of off-putting in not a good way. There's like some crappy nu metal music playing in the background, and it's all these like TV screens with like lips and eyes on them. So Lily and Max are making out in the maze of TV screens, when Lily sees like a weird lady watching them. We find out that she's Max's assistant, and Max was trying to get a threesome going with her and Lily right in the middle of this art installation in the middle of the day. I don't know. Lily, understandably, is not down and decides to split. She gets lost trying to leave though, and then as she's trying to escape, the TVs start wigging out and she's being stalked by our Cupid killer. Then, in perhaps the most ludicrous death scene of this entire movie, the Cupid killer shoots Lily with a fucking bow and arrow like he's John Rambo. Lily gets shot a couple of times and then she proceeds to fall down an entire flight of stairs into a conveniently placed dumpster where the lid, hilariously so, closes on her, because of course it does. Now, I guess this is a cool death, but I have a lot of questions. Did the killer learn to do this for this express reason? Where did he get the bow and arrow from? We never even see it before or after this scene. He just uses it this one time and then that's it. Even more conveniently, Lily was scheduled to go to LA immediately after this art installation. So when she inevitably goes missing, none of the rest of the characters suspect anything is wrong. So Dorothy and Campbell are then confronted by a woman who accuses Campbell of using her for her money and then abandoning her. And then she also implies that the same thing will happen to Dorothy and that she should watch out for Campbell because he is a red flag walking. Anyway, we then cut to Angel and Kate, and they're out together hanging out. And Kate talks to Angel about the fact that her neighbor Gary was being weird to her earlier. And I think this is another of the movie's attempts at creating a red herring in Gary, but the movie is so dismissive of like all of its plot points that it makes it impossible to, even take seriously. It just falls so completely flat. During this conversation, Angel indicates pretty heavily to Kate that, he really wants to get back together, but Kate is very wary of his drinking, despite him insisting that he's doing much better. So the remaining girls meet with Detective Vaughn, and he's really trying to get them to recollect some kind of piece of information that will help him crack the case.
You both received threatening notes signed JM, and after I tell you I'm looking for Jason Marquette, you don't think to mention it?
This guy's like Sherlock Holmes, just really elite detective work. The girls make a huge breakthrough when they decide to mention Jeremy Melton again. The Valentines have been signed JM, and Jeremy Melton is a guy that they knew. During this revelation, Dorothy reveals to the other girls, after they leave Detective Vaughn's office, that Jeremy didn't actually attack her and that she made it up. So despite this revelation that Dorothy ruined this man's life and tricked all of her friends and the entire school into helping her do so, the girls don't really seem that bothered by it.
Dorothy, I really wouldn't worry about this.
This movie's not really interested in accountability for our main characters. We're then treated to a classic scene in slasher movies where Kate goes to the very early internet and tries to get some information on JM, Jeremy Melton. Scenes like this from this era always age so poorly when it's like depicting computers and like that early age internet. It's just another thing added to the laundry list of things about this movie that date it so poorly. And I'd be willing to forgive it if there were anything else going on in this movie that was good, but there's just not. There's just not. So after this investigation scene, Angel shows up and he walks Kate home and they make out a little bit, but then he demonstrates just how reformed he is by deciding not to go up with her to her apartment. He's definitely not the killer, guys. He's definitely not the killer. Cut to the police station the next day, and the girls are convening with Detective Vaughn yet again. These girls might as well be on the payroll the amount of time that they got them working on this case. Again, we see a hilarious early 2000s computer digitized mock-up of what Jeremy Melton could look like today.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
And yeah, this might have looked like cutting edge when this movie came out, but now it just looks fucking goofy as shit, dude. Detective Vaughn then asks the girls if they have boyfriends. He's clearly being really creepy, but pretends that he's only asking so that he can rule out potential suspects. Paige delivers a completely unironic,
That went well.
and all the girls go to leave, but not before Vaughn asks Paige to stay behind. He then, for some reason, seems to think that he and Paige have some sexual tension, and he asks Paige, what are they going to do about it?
Sexual tension. Let's be frank.
Bro, what are you talking about, man?
This scene is so bizarre to me. I'm not sure if it's like trying to be funny or what, but ultimately, it doesn't even really go anywhere, much like a lot of things in this movie. This shit would definitely not fly today though, that's all I know. We then cut back to Kate's apartment, where Gary is in the middle of raiding Kate's panty drawer. I'll just let that sit for a moment.
Take it easy, I am not well.
What are you doing with my bloomers?
And then he's interrupted by the Cupid Killer, and the Cupid Killer kills him, as the Cupid Killer does. He kills. Meanwhile, outside of her apartment, Angel and Kate infer that they are starting to get a little bit more serious and possibly getting back together when they both agree to go to Dorothy's Valentine's Day party later that night. Despite Gary being killed in Kate's apartment, she never finds out. I'm guessing the killer like took the body out and like put everything back. You can't try to think about this movie for too long because it'll just make your head hurt and it'll just make you upset. So Vaughn then calls and tells the girls that he picked up that guy Jason Marquette from the beginning of the movie. Vaughn seems to think that he could be their JM that they're looking for. If I was a serial killer, I personally would not be leaving my initials on at crime scenes. That's just me though. We then cut back to Dorothy and Campbell. And Dorothy cannot stop simping for Campbell because she got him a super nice watch, and Campbell, being the Chad that he is, did not get her shit. Despite this though, Dorothy and Campbell proceed to bang. But unfortunately for Dorothy, it would appear that he arrived too early. After this very brief moment of passion, Campbell tells Dorothy that he has to leave town for a business meeting. We also discover that, sure enough, Campbell has been trying to steal Dorothy's family's money. This plotline, ultimately, does not matter. Doesn't go anywhere. Before Campbell leaves for his trip, Dorothy asks Campbell if he can go into the basement and turn the pilot light back on. This is the movie's attempt at a suspenseful scene, but it plays out like a parody of itself rather than being able to capture any genuine tension. After Campbell just kind of fumbles around in the basement for a while, the Cupid Killer comes up behind him and just stabs him in the back with an axe. Extremely unsatisfying. Now I know how Dorothy must feel. Okay guys, we're in the home stretch now. Third act. The third act consists of the big Valentine's Day party at Dorothy's mansion. But with Campbell out of town, Dorothy's acting all moody because she doesn't have her date. So similar to Lily, the killer always manages to kill a character right before they're supposed to leave town, just like with Campbell. And I just find it interesting because he's either the world's luckiest serial killer, or he's just got ears and eyes everywhere. It's all part of his big master plan. Fuck me, there's still 36 minutes left in this movie. We're then treated to some slow motion shots of Paige getting down on the dance floor. For some reason, she invited one of the weird guys from the speed dating scene earlier in the movie named Brian. So he comes up and he hits Paige with a banger of a line. Incredible.
I like how you move.
I gotta try this one out. Somehow she's into it though, and after dancing with him for like less than 60 seconds, Brian immediately jumps to let's go upstairs and bang, and inexplicably, she says yes. After some light foreplay, Brian then exposes himself to Paige and tells her to, quote, wax it.
What are you waiting for, honey? Wax it.
Like fucking Mr. Miyagi.
Wax on, right hand. Wax off, left hand.
I'm being so serious when I say I actually started dying at this part. Dude was so confident. So, tricking him, she tells him to take his shirt off and she ties him to the bed and blindfolds him. And then she pours hot wax on him. This might be a step overboard, but he was being pretty weird, so it's whatever. And honestly, this scene is just here to fill time anyway because, again, this doesn't go anywhere. Brian doesn't show up again. at any point in the movie, so. The girl who accused Campbell of using her for her money shows up and like starts causing some shit. Max also shows up and informs Kate that Lily never arrived in LA, which lets our remaining girls know that something is awry. So anyway, Campbell's old side piece goes upstairs in Dorothy's house and just starts stealing shit. I guess maybe she's just stealing back the things that Campbell had gotten for her, but still, this is a pretty wild move. In a scene that's like out of the Scary Movie franchise, the Cupid killer like goofily backs into the room carrying the dead body of a maid that he's just killed. So she whacks him with a pool cue and splits. So the Cupid killer stalks her around the mansion for a little bit, and when I tell you that there is no tension whatsoever in this scene, I'm being so for real. And I also can't emphasize enough just how little we're made to care for any character in this entire movie. Shit, if anything, I feel for Jeremy Melton. This dude was fucking set up, life ruined, noses bleeding and shit. All he did was make out with a girl with consent, and for his troubles, he got his life ruined. So honestly, he's the protagonist of this movie, if you ask me. Anyway, this stalking scene with this random girl who we've had one other scene with, maybe two, it goes on for way too long, but for our patience, we're rewarded with one of the best kills in the movie when the killer impales her head on a big shard of glass. We then cut back to Dorothy and Kate, and they're on high alert because now they know that Lily is missing. I guess no one ever checked that dumpster at that art installation, so she's just still sitting there. I don't know. So Vaughn also calls and lets the girls know that they had to let Jason go because they didn't have enough to hold him. And to make matters worse, Kate then discovers Angel, and he's getting lit at the party. After this, we then cut to Paige, and she's drinking champagne, just chilling in the hot tub. I have no doubt that this scene was written with Denise Richards in mind. Before long, she starts to get stalked by the Cupid killer, and to remind us that this is indeed a Valentine's Day slasher, she like makes stupid quips at him.
Does someone want to be my Valentine?
Personally, I wouldn't be so blasé about my life being in peril, but that's just me. So eventually Paige gets locked in the hot tub, and the Cupid killer gets this fucking long ass drill. Seriously, where the fuck did he get this drill from? He just pulls it out of nowhere. I went back and checked. He just gets it from nowhere. So after he like stabs her with it a few times, he proceeds to just chuck it in the water, electrocuting her. The electrocution cuts the power to the whole house, and the party is over, and people start to leave. I wish I could leave too, but we still got like 15 minutes. We then cut back to Kate and Dorothy, and they're like at each other's throats because they're accusing each other's boyfriends of being the killer. Dorothy accuses Kate of being jealous that Dorothy's finally found a boyfriend who's just as handsome as Kate's boyfriend, and oh my god, what the fuck is this shit? Dorothy then storms off, leaving Kate all alone in the dark, abandoned mansion. She tries to call Vaughn on her cell phone, but she can't get through, and then a little bit later, Kate's exploring the mansion and she finds Detective Vaughn's decapitated head floating in a pond. Seems like it was a cool kill, so, you know, it's a good thing it happened off screen. Kate runs inside and finds Angel, who's acting really weird and suspicious. Kate goes along with it for a moment or two, and then she decides to hit him in the nuts and make a run for it. They have a little cat and mouse game where Kate runs around and does the final girl circuit, where she's running around the mansion and she's finding all the dead bodies of all her dead friends. During this scene, I couldn't help but think how much more effective this would be if Kate had like some defining character traits or a character arc or anything interesting about her. But ultimately she has the personality of a wet paper bag. So during Kate's third act cardio workout, she's running around and she finds a gun. Maybe she can shoot me with it so I don't have to finish this movie. Okay, so this is where things get extremely messy. Try to follow me here because this is ridiculous. So Kate is ascending the stairs when she's attacked by someone else, not Angel, in the Cupid costume. The two of them fall down the stairs, and then right as the Cupid killer gets up, Angel shows up and shoots the Cupid killer like multiple times in the chest. So they unmask the killer, and it's revealed to be Dorothy. So Angel tries to suggest that all these years of Dorothy having this repressed jealousy at the other girls because, you know, she was always the fatter one who didn't have as attractive as boyfriends as they did. All of that somehow led to her going crazy and being the killer. That's what he tries to push off on Kate as like her motive. So in the closing moments of the film, Angel is like holding Kate and he's comforting her because everything's over now and she's safe, but there's a shot of some blood that falls down onto Kate's face, and the camera pans up, revealing that Angel's nose is bleeding, indicating that he has been the killer all along, and that's where the movie ends. So what the hell happened here? So apparently the movie wants us to believe that Angel found Dorothy, put the Cupid costume on her, and somehow made it so that she wasn't able to speak to Kate in the brief moment that they had together before they both fell down the stairs. My question is, before running into Kate on the stairs, why didn't Dorothy just take the costume off? It makes no... If you think about it for more than a second, this makes no sense. This ending makes no sense at all. But anyway, that's where the movie ends. A dumb as hell ending for a dumb as hell movie. Produced in the wake of Scream, where it feels like movies like this were being churned out every couple of months, Valentine from 2001 has a place in the zeitgeist for being one of the few Valentine's Day slasher movies. It's kind of like getting second place in a race where there's only 3 contestants and one of them never showed up. So all in all, I guess I can kind of see the appeal of this movie as a sheer guilty pleasure, but for me personally, I found rewatching this movie twice for this video to be an absolute chore, and personally I am looking forward to never ever watching this movie ever again. So that's Valentine, folks. Happy Valentine's Day. Thank you for watching this video. Like the video if you liked it, subscribe if you haven't. We talk about new movies, old movies, physical media, and horror in general. So with that being said, please take care and watch more movies.